welcome everybody to our second online council meeting. Thank you for everyone, as I said last time we met like this, for organising the meeting and ensuring the technology works and that we can conduct ourselves in this virtual way. The decisions will be uploaded after the meeting as normal. And Clifford, you're going to read the protocol for participation in remote meetings before we start the meeting proper.
Yes,
so, Mr. Mayor. Clifford.
Thank you. I know all members have heard the protocol before, but I will reiterate it again just for information, and this will be done at all future meetings as well. So to kick off, only speak when invited to by the Mayor, and can I ask all members to speak slowly and clearly, and if you wish to speak, please raise your hand like so that the Mayor and myself can see that you're indicating to speak. And also, when you're speaking, please direct your comments via the Mayor, please. Also ensure that your mics are muted when you are not speaking. If you are referring to a specific page, picture, appendix, diagram in support of what you're saying, please refer to the page number on the agenda. If you are having any technical difficulties, please use the chat function in the right-hand corner and alert the meeting, or you can also dial in to the meeting using the dial-up function, which is on the invite, but only if you really need to. Do not use the chat function for any formal questions to the committee, and be aware that the chat box is visible to all of those present in the meeting. And just finally, if there is any persistent disruption or disruptive behaviour, the person would be asked to desist from this behaviour, and should they not, after the second reminder to desist, then the Mayor would have them removed from the meeting and they would not rejoin. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Clifford. Hopefully none of that last bit will be necessary in a meeting like this. Well, thank you again for everyone that's joined us. This really builds on the special cabinet meeting that we held on the 22nd of April. And I think we all pledged there as an administration to continue to be open and transparent even in these difficult times. Meetings like this cabinet meeting, alongside scrutiny meetings, planning, licensing and audit, will continue. And it's really important to us as an administration that decisions are taken transparently and have the opportunity for further scrutiny. I would again like to thank legal and governance officers for ensuring that this can happen. Since we last met, we've completely transformed the way the council delivers services, and indeed we've continued to create new services. We've made sure that our vital frontline services can still operate while making sure that our staff are kept safe and that there are good supplies of PPE. We've set up a food delivery and emergency support service for people that can't leave their homes or can't access vital supplies. From a standing start, we've now delivered food packages to more than 1,500 households a week, most of them not on the government shielding list. We've also stepped in to top up the government's initial food packages for those NHS shielding residents where they didn't have access to dietary, allergy or religious requirements. We've paid out now over £50 million, 84% of our grant allocation, to over 3,000 businesses to ensure that our businesses in Hackney can survive during lockdown. We've also worked in new ways and formed new cooperation and partnerships with our local communities and mutual aid groups, setting up a pool of volunteers that are helping services and local organisations respond. And nearly 500 volunteers have now been deployed out into those networks. It's absolutely impossible to name every council officer that has made all this possible, but I would like to say thank you to all of those that have been part of this response. But on top of these new services, we want the government to work hand in hand with councillors and councils as they develop their testing strategy. And as I've said recently in the last few days, it's really important that government listens to local authorities and involve us in the next phases of response. That matters on testing, but it also matters on how we support our communities to navigate these difficult times. We believe that we have experienced public health teams, consultation, engagement, and the teams that work with our voluntary sector that could make a testing, tracking and tracing operation here in Hackney much more effective and bridge the digital divide. We're ready to step up on that role, and that is something we'll continue to say that we are best placed to do. From the outset, I pledged Hackney Council will do everything it can to help residents through this pandemic. This has come at a great cost to the council, and we heard at the very start, as we've said, that the government would make sure that we were covered. The papers this evening go into that in more detail, building on the cabinet paper that we bought last time. The crisis has revealed that jobs and services most important to this country are those that are often provided by key workers and those that perhaps were not valued before this crisis. So not only nurses and doctors, but also the council's care and social work teams, waste and recycling, and many more have ensured that we have found a way through this crisis. We want to make sure that these teams have the resources they need to make sure our communities are safe and respond to the gaps in services left by the government. As Deputy Mayor Renison is no doubt going to show in greater detail earlier, the Cabinet report that she's bringing this evening shows the cost of responding to this crisis, and that unless we receive additional funding, there will be a £19 million gap for the first 3 months alone. Throughout the year, our budget gap could be as high as £71 million by the time we reach year end. And we reiterate that the Council has only received £17.7 million in direct funding for our COVID responsibilities and response. That gap of £71 million in context is one half of the £140 million government cuts that we've faced since 2010. And we would have to find that in only 1 year. After a decade of austerity, we need the government to step in and support our frontline services. We risk making cuts to those very services that are getting us through this crisis and we pay tribute to every Thursday night. At the same time, new challenges are given to us. On the 10th of May, the Prime Minister updated the government's advice and caused multiple confusion, not just amongst public authorities, but businesses and residents. I want to be absolutely clear, though, that anyone watching, lockdown has not been lifted. So please continue to stay home as much as possible, be considerate of others and keep a social distance from other people at all times. At our last Cabinet meeting in April, I read out some of the names of just 12 local people that we knew of then had lost their lives and paid tribute to the 94 residents that at that point had died as a result of coronavirus. Since then, the total deaths of Hackney residents as a result of the virus has gone up to 153 of our friends and neighbours. Each death is very clearly its own tragedy, and every person that has died has their own stories and connections and contributions to the borough. And I will continue to urge residents to email us and talk to us about those stories so we can collate them. But the one notable addition this month has been people like Jermaine Wright, who was the London FA Club Council member, Secretary of the North East London Division, referee and Secretary of the Hackney and Leighton Sunday Football League. And anyone who's read tributes to him online will see what an enormous contribution he made to sport in the borough, to football especially, but also to the community life in and around the Hackney Marshes. But all of those 153 leave behind grieving friends and family, and they're all in our thoughts at this difficult time. Although I can't go through every other story this meeting, we'll continue to pay tribute to them. And if we can take 1 minute's silence to remember them tonight, I would be grateful. Thank you. Thank you. So, apologies for absence. I've received no apologies this evening, and I think everybody is present. So thank you. The meeting is, of course, held in public under the current emergency procedures. Any member of the council can ask a question during the proceedings, and I will allow this in accordance with general rules for governing meetings. And as before, the public and press have been invited to the meeting, but we've urged them, if they were to want to participate, to contact governance services in the normal way. And I know that we have Ed Sheridan from the Hackney Citizen here this evening, and for the first time, we're obviously streaming this live online. I've had no other urgent items of business made known to me, and in terms of declarations of interest, we don't know of any at this time. I do want to declare my ongoing board membership of the Shoreditch Trust. It's a regeneration charity in the borough that has been part of our humanitarian assistance, but I've been neither part of decisions around that either in the trust or in the council directly. Are there any other declarations of interest?
Just in that vein, Manor House Development Trust, similar background to you for Shoreditch Trust, which I don't think is a conflict, but for the avoidance of
Doubt.
out there.
Thank you, Councillor Selman. I have not been given any notification to conduct any part of the meeting in private, and we haven't received any questions, deputations or petitions. So item 6 is the unrestricted meetings of both Cabinet held on the 16th of March 2020 and also the special Cabinet held on the 22nd of April 2020. They are pages 1 to 34 in our packs. We're happy to agree both those sets of minutes.
Agreed.
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 Thank you.
Agreed.
Great.
Thanks very much, colleagues.
Thank you.
So the next item is item 7, which is the capital update, which is in my name. And just to reiterate, our investment in our borough and our infrastructure continues very much. This report is a relatively short report in comparison to some, but I would highlight to colleagues continued investment in our schools, forward investment in bringing back to the borough our send travel provision, which is, I think, something long held by the service, and also our investment in the inclusive economy work happening in Hackney Wick. And I'm sure Councillor Burt would think it was remiss of me if I didn't recognise that we're also continuing to invest in the fleet that supports our frontline street scene and waste colleagues who are bringing services in-house around gritting and gully cleansing. I saw the gully cleansing firmly over the course of the weekend, and there's more investment in Abney Park. But that's a quick canter through the key highlights of the capital report. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Are we happy to agree the report? If not, Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you. Yes, just to welcome the extra funding that has been secured by officers from LLDC for the old baths in my ward. It will go towards reconstructing the Muga football pitch at the back of there. It will be used by Young Hackney and youth organisations in the ward and in the southeast of the borough. Officers are to be congratulated for securing that money. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. And I would reiterate, obviously, the work that you were part of and your ward colleagues and myself and indeed other colleagues in responding to the challenge that young people in Hackney Wick gave us to create more inclusive facilities. And I think this is a very clear indication of not just investment in our local economy that's inclusive, but also in the community facilities for our young people. So I really welcome that intervention, reminder of what we're doing there. Any other questions or comments?
No, I was just going to echo the same thoughts of what Councillor Kennedy said, actually. You know, always welcoming the investment in schools, which you mentioned, but this particular work, because of the work that ward councillors did and ULI worked alongside them, and just hearing from young people directly and as a way they wanted to shape the borough going forward, it's a really good piece of work for them to point back to and see that their voice is heard and does make a difference when they speak up.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bramble. Are we happy to agree the report? Agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. So, Deputy Mayor Renison, the main event in terms of the OFP and update from the previous special cabinet meeting, and I'm sure Deputy Mayor Renison is going to do this, but again, thank not only her, but all of the officers across the council, but especially in the finance team and the group director, Ian Williams, who's on the line, for their work in pulling together this report and doing the returns to government on time. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Renison.
Great, thank you, Mayor Glanville. So for those looking for this paper, it's sat in a supplementary pack. So quite rightly to date, the focus has been on the human impact of coronavirus. But this report provides the latest information on the financial impact of COVID-19 on Hackney Council. I have to apologise for the lateness in tabling this report. This was so we could include our latest return to the Ministry for Housing, Community and Local Government, which, as the Mayor's touched on, has been led by Ian Williams and his fantastic team, and huge thanks to the officers involved for all of the work they've put into this. The Council moves swiftly to meet the needs of local residents, and I must reiterate the words of the Mayor and others in acknowledging the incredible job done by our staff and their public and voluntary sector partners. However, this has had an impact on our finances, with additional spend accompanied by a drastic drop in income. As the Mayor has touched on, we are currently facing an in-year shortfall of £71 million. Context, that's roughly half the level of funding cuts we've seen over 10 years of austerity, and that's in one single year. To date, government support totals just shy of £18 million. I also want to flag that I don't appreciate some of the rhetoric we've seen leak out of central government and appearing in certain parts of the press. Poor financial management is the reason councils are struggling. Despite having seen 140 million cut in central government funding in the past 10 years, Hackney's finances are sound and we have a robust reserves policy. We could not have been more resilient in financial terms going into this, and yet we will need help. I also want to touch on methods. The government asked us to produce a set of calculations for in-year budget shortfalls based on the assumption that life will return to normal from the end of July. And just to stress that again, from the end of July. We've produced these figures in good faith, and we trust that they are used as intended, and that this doesn't reflect a move by central government to in any way cook the books. And for complete transparency, we have also provided our own figures, which provide the full year impact on Hackney Council's finances. The shortfall is such that without more action from central government, we face a health crisis that will be both followed and compounded by a crisis in public services, and this cannot be allowed to happen. I recommend this report to Cabinet.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Renison. Does anyone else want to comment on the report? I think it shows how we've all contributed to the work on the report and the understanding of the big numbers in there, and obviously the report back to MHLG. So are you happy to agree the report?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. And thank you again to Deputy Mayor Renison for so succinctly introducing the report and obviously doing the work with officers to get us to this point. No doubt we will be returning to a similar report in terms of future cabinet meetings. And again, that's one of the very important things that we wanted to do, is ensuring that residents are fully updated on the position. Item 9 is the restricting residual waste key decision. And can I ask that Councillor Burke introduces the report?
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. To some degree, I'm disappointed that tonight's paper has been somewhat overshadowed by current events, because I am aware of the the passion and the interest that the residents of Hackney have in their highly valued waste service. And I suspect that in any other time there would be much more debate about the minutiae of the mitigations that we're putting in place to help larger families or mitigate against the effects of nappy waste, which I won't go into this evening. Suffice to say, members of Cabinet and the Mayor will be intimately acquainted with the contents of this paper this evening, having explored the Council's reduction and recycling plan, which was approved at June 2019 Cabinet. It is the overriding duty of this local authority not only to, wherever possible, eliminate the costs associated with the waste system of Hackney, but primarily to address the profound impacts that the waste system has on our decarbonisation proposals, which are very pressing indeed. Members will be aware that the average bag of black waste in the London Borough of Hackney comprises 55% recyclable material, and so the proposals set out in this paper ultimately put in place a structural change that will encourage households to place recyclable material into the green bag recycling sacks and into their food waste caddies, rather than into the black bag residual waste. And the product of doing so will not only be that over time we eliminate the costs associated directly with the incineration of waste material in this borough, but more important still, the carbon dioxide emissions associated with the incineration of waste material, and we take our duty in that respect very seriously indeed. To that end, I would instruct the Mayor and Cabinet, I point the Mayor and Cabinet to section 1.3 of the report, which lays out in stark detail the potential for residual waste restriction to significantly increase both our recycling rate and reduce the amount of material that we incinerate. And on current projections, the proposals in this paper should lead to the elimination of 4,400 tonnes of black bag waste at the incinerator, which translates into something in the region of 3,000 tonnes of carbon dioxide a year, which will make a significant positive impact on our commitment to decarbonise the full functions of the council by 45% against 2010 levels by 2030, and to achieve net zero emissions by 2040 in accordance with the climate emergency motion that we passed at full council last year. I note that not all demographics of the borough support the proposals, and that information is contained within the consultation appendix to this paper. But I am satisfied that officers have put in place all adequate and reasonably practicable measures to ensure that the residual waste restriction can be delivered with minimal impact to large households and households that produce clinical and nappy waste. I'd therefore like to commend the paper to Cabinet, and finally to thank the extensive hard work of boroughs, of officers across the waste services, but particularly Sam Kirk and the Head of Service, John Wheatley, as well as the Director for Public Realm, Alan Richards, for having put up with my many unreasonable demands to get to a place where I'm satisfied we can deliver residual waste restriction in the London Borough of Hackney and it not have an impact on the hard-won benefits of clean streets which have been achieved over the last 20 years in this borough, and which is something an aspiration that the Mayor and the Cabinet and all the councillors wish to maintain in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burke, and thank you for not only capturing the immense amount of work that's gone into this report, but also the positive environmental impact, and then finishing there on absolutely some of the key priorities of the council in terms of keeping up our reputation for running probably the best waste and recycling service in London. I'd like to thank Sam Kirk, who I know is joined us this evening especially, but also the others that Councillor Burke mentioned, and obviously his work as well to ensure that some of those key equalities issues are also covered in the report. Do members wish to debate or discuss the report in any more detail? No? Are we happy to agree the report?
Yeah. Agreed.
Agreed.
And just for everyone's benefit, the implementation is from next financial year, isn't it, Councillor Burke?
It is.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Bramble, school governor appointments, item 10.
Thank you, Mayor Glanville. Just want to bring to attention the appointment and agreement from members on the appointment of Mr. Simon Dixon, a governor, to one of our local schools, and just an opportunity again to reiterate our continued thanks for all of those who volunteered to become governors in our schools. They are always very busy when schools are open, but equally that work has continued while, as you know, our schools have been shut, but only open to children that have SEND or are vulnerable or who have special educational needs. And equally, given government announcements around the prospects of school reopening, equally governors still continue to stay busy, Mayor Glanville, on discussions around schools. But I just want to highlight the report to members.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bramble. Are we happy to agree this appointment?
Agreed.
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 Agreed. Thank you. Just for the public record, we tried to establish whether or not we knew the said governor, and we could not establish that we personally did, but we did our best endeavours. That's why we haven't declared that this evening. But we do wish him well in his new appointment. There are no appointments to outside bodies this evening under item 11. No any other urgent unrestricted items. No need to exclude the public or press. And just thank everybody for attending this evening and conducting the business in such a good and comradely manner. And thank you again for the officers that ensure that this meeting has been able to go ahead, and we're constantly honing our skills and our ability to, in this case, stream live, which I also welcome. So thank you, and I'll call the meeting to a close.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Thank you, Clifford.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bramble.